Understanding your golf swing and where the club face is at in the backswing is vital to being a great ball striker. Believe it or not, it all starts with the grip and that relationship to the backswing and the club face. My name's Sam Vossler, lead golf instructor for the Sanford Power Golf Academy with my good friends at US Golf TV. And today we're going to review the different grips a golfer can have, the tendencies for each grip and a club face position that goes with that grip, and the recommended matchups for the different grips that we talk about. So first off, we know that in general there's different ways to swing a golf club. We also know that there's different ways to hold on to the club. So when you look on tour, you see all sorts of grip from neutral to weak to strong. So we're going to review those a little bit, and we're just going to talk about the lead hand in this. So we know that the right hand has a pretty big role in this, but we're just going to discuss the left hand today. So the first grip we're going to talk about, which again we recommend for most golfers, is what we call as a neutral grip. So when we look at a neutral grip, what I like to see, and again just talking about the positions, is we like to see, if we're looking at our hand from our vantage point where our eyes are here, I want to see about 2 to 2.5 knuckles on my hand, okay? So when I do this, again, if I turn them this way, I'm going to see more knuckles, okay? If I turn it this way, I'm not going to see any knuckles. So a neutral grip is going to be roughly, 2 knuckles that you're going to see. So that'd be the first position, which is a neutral grip. The second position we're going to talk about for a grip that's common is also called a weak grip. So like we discussed, for a weak grip from your vantage point, you're not going to be able to see any knuckles as you're looking down over your thumb, okay? So when we're looking down, again, we see no knuckles. So that would be more of a weaker grip. Think of Jon Rahm has a weaker grip. Jordan Spieth is neutral to even weak. So we got neutral, little bit weak, and now we get to go to the strong grip, which we see quite a bit. So a strong grip is going to be the opposite way. Think clockwise. You're going to see a lot of knuckles. So when you see a lot of knuckles, think about revving like a motorcycle or a Harley. You're going to see maybe 3 to even 5 knuckles. Okay, so those are the 3 different positions that we commonly see with grips. So with those grips, again, we know that the club face is vital to hitting good golf shots. So if we start the club at address with that neutral grip, and I don't have anything that I'm going to compensate the club face, I'm going to go up to the top with that same grip, and you're going to see a position at the top from down the line there. Again, what you're relatively going to see is you're going to see a pretty flat wrist, and again, the club face position is going to kind of match my lead wrist and also my lead forearm. Okay, that's a pretty neutral position. Again, I haven't compensated, I haven't done anything to my wrist, my elbows, or anything. Now if we go with a little bit weaker grip, again, think of like a Jon Rahm as far as his dress position with his grip. If we go up to the top, again, this is a weak grip. If you look down the line, you can kind of tell the club face, again, is if I swing this long, it's going to feel like it's kind of pointing down at the ground. So that would be a weak position at the top. Okay, that's kind of the natural matchup if you don't compensate anything. So it's going to be kind of pointing down at the ground with the weak grip. So now we're going to go to the strong grip. So again, with the strong grip, we're going to have seeing a lot more knuckles. So a common thing when we get up to the top, if we don't manipulate anything, is we're going to see a face that's called shut or closed. That's a common golf professional language at the top. Think of Dustin Johnson at the top of his position, and it's going to be pointing up towards the sky. And again, that's commonly known in the golf industry as shut or closed. So now that we kind of understand relatively what each grip is going to provide at the top of our golf swing, now we need to understand what those matchups need to be. So commonly, again, we talk about the position from address all the way to the top. We're going to talk about the importance of what you need to actually feel to have a good club face. So at the end of the day, it's not necessarily what your hand is doing. Your wrist can be in a different position, but the club face, if it's in a relatively advantageous spot at the top, it's going to be in a great position to hit a good ball. So let's just start with a neutral grip, okay, which I recommend for most people. Again, you're maybe seeing 2 knuckles on your hand. Okay, when we go back, again, I can do lots of different things with my lead wrist, okay? And this is, again, some different golf knowledge. So this lead wrist, it can do 2 things. It can or 3 things. It can stay relatively flat. It can also go this way, which is called extension, We also call that in the golf industry, there's a little cup, okay? So your wrist is cupped. That's called extension or cupped. There's also a wrist can do this. So think about your wrist bowing or flexing. That's called flexion. So your wrist really has 3 positions that it can do. So with a neutral grip, again, depending on what you want that club face to be at the top, I strongly recommend a relatively flat wrist from here. That doesn't mean that you can't hinge up. It just means that you're going to feel a flat wrist that's going to match the club face. So you go to the top, again, it's going to match up pretty well. So I can do a lot of different things. I can have a neutral grip with a lot of cup. Well, what that's going to do to the club face, it's going to open it a little bit. Now there's plenty of golfers that play that way, but you're going to need to do something in the downswing to make sure that club face gets square. So you could also go to the top and think of even John Rahm. He's got a really bowed lead wrist, and that's going to get his face a little bit more shut or square with that grip that he has. So if we say we go to a weak grip, okay, again, remembering the weak grip, we don't see any knuckles. The matchup we'd like to see with this, again, you almost need to have this, we recommend this, you should have a lot of bow in your wrist, or else you're gonna really need to get that club coming down square in the downswing. So if you have a little bit weaker grip, it's most likely gonna be necessary that you wanna get your wrist bowed or the knuckles down to the ground to get that club face in a good position. If we have an open face and we cup, and I have a weak grip, that club face, as you can see, is pointing down towards the ground, and that's going to be in a really tough spot. And honestly, there's a lot of amateurs out there that are in this position. On the other side of the spectrum, if you have a very, very strong grip, it's okay to have a little bit of cup in your wrist. A lot of times you'll see that. If you don't have any cup, that club face is going to be super shut or closed, pointing to the sky at the top of the swing. So when we do this, again, it's very important to understand that if you're going to have a really strong grip, I would recommend having a little bit of cup in your lead wrist. As you can tell, if I put a little bit of cup in there with a strong grip, that face is going to be in a relatively good position. That's kind of matching my lead forearm. Okay, but if I don't, and I go up to the top, you can even think about DJ. Again, that club face is going to be really, really shut. And depending on, what your abilities are and your skill, maybe it's a little bit better to be in a little bit more square position. So again, matchups are huge. It's very popular to say that right now. The grip is very, very important. But as long as we understand what that matchup needs to be up to the top of the golf swing, and we're making sure we have that proper matchup, we're going to be a great ball striker, and we're going to have confidence when we get to the golf course.